what's the best WordPress hosting when it comes to cost and speed optimization? Let's take a look. Hey, it's Ozzy here, and in this video we're talking about WordPress hosting when it comes to speed optimization. This video is part of the WordPress speed optimization series, so make sure you check out all the other videos in this playlist. Okay, so let's talk about hosting. When it comes to a fast WordPress website, people tend to focus on plugins and tips and hacks to make their website fast. The irony, of course, is that when it comes to hosting, they typically look for the cheapest hosting they can get. Now, sometimes this is down to budget, and I totally get it. I've been there more times than I care to remember. And when you don't have money, then that's how it is. But there are some good WordPress hosts that are not that expensive. And sometimes when we're used to that budget mentality, what tends to happen is that we continue to look for the cheapest hosting we can possibly get, and then spend the majority of our time looking for magic plugins to speed up a website. So let me put this in perspective. Your hosting is pretty much the engine of the car, and the plugins, for want of a better description, are like fitting lighter seats, lighter wing mirrors, and lighter bumpers in order to help the car go faster. That's how important hosting is. To put it another way, if you were spending hundreds of dollars on a big, meaty, dedicated server with tons of RAM and top-notch hardware, then your WordPress website would be blisteringly fast. And that's before you added any optimization plugins. On the other hand, if you get very cheap hosting, especially shared hosting where one server is hosting tons and tons of websites, sometimes hundreds depending on the host, then all the resources of that server, that is the RAM and the disk space and the CPU, are being shared by as many websites as are hosted on that server. That means that you get very few resources, and that makes for a very slow website. So if you are hosted on a very cheap server, then that becomes your ceiling. That pretty much determines the best performance you're going to get out of your website. If you then spend all your day looking for plugins that claim they're going to make your website incredibly fast, you'll probably find that typically some plugins can help, but the improvements you get are generally quite small. And that's because your website simply doesn't have many resources. It's on a bad server. So the very first thing we need to do if we want a fast WordPress website is to open up our wallets, unfortunately, and shell out on good hosting. Now, I used to host websites for clients for over a decade in the previous existence, and I've dealt with more hosts than I've had hot dinners. Some used to be absolutely great, and then they were taken over by a certain company, which promptly overcrowded them and completely ruined them. And so I've had to migrate from tons of different hosts, and I have the scars to prove it. So I'm very careful when I recommend a host, and I'm also very suspicious of most hosts. Now, to make this video relevant in the future, I'm going to put a link in the description to the hosts that I'm currently using and the ones that I recommend. And I'm going to mention those hosts now, but as I say, things can change. So I still advise that you check out the link just to make sure that the hosts that I recommend on my blog are still the same ones that I'm going to mention in this video. Okay, so I'm going to make this really simple. If you don't have the budget right now, then I recommend SiteGround. This is the best WordPress hosting you can get on a budget. The servers are actually pretty fast, especially considering the low cost. And if you go for the GoGeek plan, you get what they call a semi-dedicated server, which guarantees that there will be fewer websites hosted on that server, which means that your website will have more resources, which basically gives you a faster WordPress website. Now, on the other hand, if you do have the budget, then I recommend Kinsta. They cost a little bit more, but they are blisteringly fast. They host on Google's cloud platform, and they are superbly well optimized. One choice is good for websites that don't have too much traffic, and one choice is great for blogs that do have a lot of traffic. Remember that your hosting is akin to the engine in the car. 80% of your website performance and speed is going to be down to your hosting. The rest of the tips in this playlist, that is plugins and little hacks, those things will account for the 20%, if you like, of the overall picture when it comes to your WordPress optimization effort. Now, there are thousands upon thousands of hosts, of course, and many of them are very good. I would need an entire lifetime to test them all. So if you happen to have a great WordPress host, then please leave a comment, share it so that we can all see who it is. And please mention whether this is, in your opinion, a budget host. And I don't mean a dollar host, I just mean a host ideal for somebody on a budget, or a more expensive host, a top host if you like, for when it comes time to take things to the next level. So just share your experience and that will be really cool. Okay, so now we've covered hosting. The next thing we want to look at is a good WordPress theme. You'll see the video on your screen now. Click it and I'll see you in a moment.